2021 meeting of the San Francisco Ethics Commission. This meeting is being held by teleconference pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 and the 12th supplement to the mayoral proclamation declaring the existence of a local emergency dated February 25th, 2020. First, I'd like to ask the commission staff member, Mr. Ronald Contreras, who will be today's moderator, to go over today's procedures.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. The minutes of this meeting will reflect that due to the COVID-19 health emergency and to protect commission members, city employees, and the public, the meeting rooms of City Hall are closed. However, commission members and staff will be participating in today's meeting remotely. This precaution is taken pursuant to the various local, state, and federal orders, declarations, and directives. Commission members will attend the meeting through video conference and participate in the meeting to the same extent as if they were physically present. Please note that today's meeting is being live cablecast on SF.gov TV and streamed live online at sfgovtv.org/ethicslive. Once again, streamed live online at sfgovtv.org/ethicslive. Public comment will be available on each item of this agenda. Each member of the public will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Comments or opportunities to speak during the public comment period are available via phone call by calling 1-415-655-0001. Again, the phone number is 1-415-655-0001. Access code is 2485-473-3501. Again, access code is 2485-473-3501, followed by the pound sign. Then press pound again to join as an attendee. You will hear a beep when you are connected to the meeting. You will be automatically muted and in listening mode only. When your item of interest comes up, dial *3 to raise your hand and to be added to the public comment line. You will then hear, "You have raised your hand to ask a question." Please wait until the host calls on you. The line will be silent as you wait your turn to speak. Ensure that you are in a quiet location. Before you speak, mute the sound of any equipment around you, including television, radio, or computer. It is especially important that you mute your computer if you are watching via the web link to prevent feedback and echo when you speak. When the system message says, "Your line has been unmuted," this is your turn to speak. You will hear staff say, "Welcome, caller." We encourage you to state your name clearly. As soon as you begin speaking, you will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You'll hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you change your mind and wish to withdraw yourself from the public comment line, press *3 again. You will hear the system say, "You have lowered your hand." Once your 3 minutes has expired, staff will thank you and mute you. You will hear, "Your line has been muted." Attendees who wish to speak during the other public comment periods may stay on the line and listen for the next public comment opportunity and should raise their hands to enter the public comment line by pressing *3 when their next item of interest comes up. Public comment may be also submitted in writing and will be shared with the Commission after this meeting has concluded and will be included as part of the official meeting file. Written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Once again, written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Thank you, Madam Chair. You're muted, Commissioner Lee.
Thank you. Now let's proceed to agenda item number 1, which is roll call.
Commissioners, please unmute your microphones and then verbally state your presence at today's meeting after your name is called. Commissioner Bell.
Here.
Commissioner Bush.
Present.
Commissioner Chu. Chair Lee.
Here, and I think we are expecting Commissioner Chu, who's having some technical issues, that she will be joining us shortly. Now that we have
Madam Chair, with 3 members present and accounted for, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Let's proceed to agenda item number 2, which is public comments on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Ethics Commission is now receiving public comment on agenda item number 2 remotely in this meeting. Each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to provide public comment. If you joined the meeting early to listen to the proceedings, now is the time to get in line to speak. If you have not already, please press *3. It is important that you press *3 only once to enter the queue, as pressing it again will move you out of the public comment line and back into listening mode. Once you are in the queue and standing by, the system will prompt you when it's your turn to speak, so it's important that you call from a quiet location. Please address your comment to the Commission as a whole and not to individual members. Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. If you have just joined this meeting, we are currently on agenda item 2, public comments on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda. You will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you have not already done so, please press *3 to be added to the queue. For those already on hold, please continue to wait until the system indicates you have been unmuted. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Let us proceed to agenda item number 3, which is the approval of the draft minutes of the August 13th, 2021 meeting. This item was continued from last month, and do we have any comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Bush? Unmute, please.
There we go. Sorry. I'm fine with the version that we have up now. Thank you.
Okay. Can we open up for public comment, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Ethics Commission is now receiving public comment on consent calendar item 3 remotely in this meeting. Each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to provide public comment. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you joined the meeting early to listen to the proceedings, now is the time to get in line to speak. If you have not already done so, please press *3. It is important that you press *3 only once to enter the queue, as pressing it again will move you out of the public comment line and back into listening mode. Once you are in the queue and standing by, the system will prompt you when it's your turn to speak. So once again, it's important that you call from a quiet location. Please address your comments to the Commission as a whole and not to individual members. Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. Please stand by. If you have just joined this meeting, we are currently taking public comment on consent calendar item 3, draft minutes of the Commission's August 13th, 2021 regular meeting. If you have not already done so, please press *3 to be added to the public comment queue. Stand by. Madam Chair, we have no callers in the queue.
Okay, public comment is closed. Can I entertain a motion to approve this minutes for August 2013?
I move that we approve them.
Okay. I'll second.
A motion has been made and seconded. I will now call the roll. Commissioner Bush.
Yes.
Chair Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
With 3 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you. Now to the agenda item number 4 of the consent calendar, which is the approval of the minutes October 8, 2021. Comments?
Approve.
Okay, no comments? Let's open up for public comment, please, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Ethics Commission is now receiving public comment on consent calendar item 4 remotely in this meeting. Each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to provide public comment. You'll hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you joined the meeting earlier to listen to the proceedings, now is the time to get in line to speak. If you have not already done so, please press *3. It is important that you press *3 only once to enter the queue, as pressing it again will move you out of the public comment line and back into listening mode. Please stand by. If you have just joined this meeting, we are currently taking public comment on consent calendar item 4, draft minutes of the Commission's October 8th, 2021 regular meeting. If you have not already done so, please press *3 to be added to the public comment queue. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Public comment is closed for this agenda item. We have Commissioner Bush make the motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bell. Roll call, please.
Yes. A motion has been made. Oh, where'd it go? A motion has been made and seconded. I will now call the roll. Commissioner Bush.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Chair Lee.
Aye.
With 3 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. I also want to suggest to the director to share with the person who's been taking the minutes that because this is a government document, that in the future, if he or she could identify the speakers with their proper title, I think that would reflect the consistency as well as respect to the office and the individuals.
Will do. Thank you for that feedback.
Okay. Now we move to regular calendar, agenda item number 5, which is the discussion and possible action on the continuation of remote commission meetings. This is the resolution making findings to allow teleconference meetings under California Government Code, Section 54953-E. Colleagues, this is a similar resolution that we had reviewed and approved from the last meeting. We have any comments?
No. This is Commissioner Bell, Chair Lee. I was just wondering, so are these going to be done in 30-day increments depending upon the health situation in San Francisco, that it's relooked at every 30 days to determine if we're going to meet in public? Is that, I mean, if somebody from the staff, I'm not directing you at you, Chair Lee, to know what the healthcare situation is in San Francisco, but I was just curious as to see if this is going to be a 30-day play it as it goes.
Director Pelham will be able to answer this, and I think that she will be able to give us more details later on in her executive director report.
Thank you.
And if I might, through the chair, we also have City Attorney Shen here, who can provide some further context for the regularity of the resolution if you'd like to.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you, Leanne. So to Commissioner Bell's question, yes, currently we're required every 30 days to sort of reenact or reapprove this resolution, allowing the commission to continue meeting remotely. It is still a little bit of an open question about how long this commission and other commissions will be allowed to meet remotely. The latest information that I have is that we will be meeting remotely at least through the end of the calendar year. So for this commission, obviously today and then next month's meeting on December 10th. I think after January 1 in 2022, I'm not exactly sure what the sort of switchover date will be, but I do anticipate starting next year at some point, we will be having in-person meetings again.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's open up for public comment, please.
Could I
Sorry, Commissioner Bush.
Thank you. I wanted to just ask whether there will be provisions for people who are disabled and unable to get to the city hall. I speak from my personal situation because at the moment, even with the assistance of therapists, I'm unable to get out of my house.
If I may, Chair Lee.
Yes.
So Commissioner Bush, I have posed that question to the team of people in my office and elsewhere who are starting to plan for in-person commission meetings next year, and I'll certainly keep you posted.
Thank you. I know that when we do the survey of commissioners throughout the government and City Hall, one of the issues that's identified is the number of commissioners who are disabled. And so there's an anticipation of involvement, but apparently we need more clarity on how that involvement can take place.
Yes, understood, Commissioner Bush.
I hope that in addition to the regular ADA requirements, that you take into the consideration that the pandemic has caused to all the participants. Okay, let's go to public comment.
Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are callers in the queue. For those already on hold, please continue to wait until the system indicates you have been unmuted. If you have just joined this meeting, we are currently on the public discussion on the motion of agenda item number 5, discussion and possible action on resolution on continuation of remote commission meetings. If you have not already done so, please press *3 to be added to the public comment queue. You will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You'll hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. Please stand by. Once again, if you just joined this meeting, we are currently on the public discussion on the motion of agenda item number 5, discussion and possible action on resolution on continuation of remote commission meetings. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Bell, second by me. Roll call, please.
A motion has been made and seconded. I will now call the roll. Commissioner
We
Bush.
have been joined by Commissioner Chu.
Thank you. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Commissioner Bush.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chu, we are on agenda item number 5, which is the resolution of the continued remote meeting.
Thank you.
And
Yes,
welcome.
I was
It's
able to
wonderful
hear.
to see your face.
I have to let you know that I'm on my phone, and my apologies for my delay and these technical challenges. And so I see all of your lovely initials. I don't have the camera, so hopefully you can see me. I can't see myself.
Oh,
which
we
is
can
not a
see you
bad thing.
perfectly.
We see you well.
But
We can see you
I'm going
well.
to try and download to get on my computer. I'm not sure what happened. I've just had a complete technical Armageddon today.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
But yeah, I'm prepared to cast my vote.
Okay. A motion has been made and seconded. I will now call the roll. Commissioner Bush. You're
Aye.
unmuted. Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Chair Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
With 4 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you. Next is agenda item number 6, which is a presentation and discussion of the draft ordinance and regulation amendments to enact recommendations contained in the report on gift laws, Part A, gifts to individuals, dated August 2nd, 2021, and the report on gift laws, Part B, gifts to city departments, dated September 29, 2021. Comments, colleagues? Do I see any hands raised?
I'm looking forward to I'm sorry. Chair Lee?
Commissioner Bush.
Thank you. I just want to say that reading it, it's clear that the staff has done a very good job of outlining the various considerations as this moves forward. And it's certainly an improvement over the current policy in terms of being very specific about various circumstances. I would recommend, as we move forward with this, that this be augmented by inclusion of scenarios that are very case specific. The same way, for example, the IRS does with their rules, and then at the bottom they say, you know, if Larry is selling this house, and then the sale proceeds can be X or Y and so forth. So I think in this case, we have so many examples that come to mind reading through this, that it would be good to show those in our record as we move forward. For example, reading it, I'm not entirely clear of the circumstances of a gift that's made to a sister city committee for someone who's then going to travel to that country. And so people provide funding to the sister city committee to pay for the officials' travel. And so far as I can see, there's no indication of what is an acceptable compensation for travel. For example, can you be in a $500 a night hotel? Or do you use the yardstick of the federal reimbursement rate for various parts of the world where you're traveling? And this has obviously been an issue in several cases now involved in prosecutions. But we don't have anything that says how much is a reasonable per diem that can be paid for. And we don't, it's not clear to me that we have rules about contributions for things like putting together a bid for a Super Bowl or City Hall celebrations. And so I'd like, if we're not going to spell it out in the law, or even if we do, that we show the scenarios so that both the public and the city officials are aware of how it applies. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu, your hands up.
Commissioner Lee, and I want to associate myself with Commissioner Bush's comments, and also want to commend staff, Mr. Ford and Mr. Canning, for this really stellar work. I know it's been a long, ongoing project, and many hours, and I think that the level of care and detail and thought that's been put into this, both the ordinance and the extremely helpful chart of the amendments, is very, very clear. And I think as I look at it and I think about like the context and the moment that we're in right now, and I have two thoughts, and it's just food for thought. Would love to hear from my fellow commissioners on that. Is in military parlance, I think that people are always concerned that we're fighting the last war, and that we are still dealing with the fallout from the large corruption scandal that seems like to be the gift that keeps on giving in San Francisco. And so how do we think about not only what has been in the laws and regulations in the past, and the loopholes and the framework that was exploited by actors who've been charged in this these recent many months, but how do we think proactively about the things that haven't happened yet, but could happen given the context that we're operating in? And I think Commissioner Bush comments about the sister cities, about the Super Bowl, how do we think about that and create a framework where those types of activities that may not have come to light yet, or nefarious practices that we don't know about, can be curtailed by this framework that we're proposing. And then second is a little bit closer to like less, 20,000 foot level, is what are the consequences? A lot of this is about disclosure, but what are the consequences for failing to disclose? I think that there's it's extremely limited ability to audit or monitor because we don't know what isn't disclosed. We only know what is disclosed, and like, how do we have the ability to check whether or not that's the full extent of the disclosure? I think that we would have to rely on whistleblowers or something. And so, should we add what are the teeth to enforce these provisions and to make there be consequences for failing to disclose? For failure to file a Form 700 is $100 a day, but only for 10 days, I think. So it's real money, but it's not ongoing. And is it enough of a deterrent to make sure that people do comply? And so there's both the carrot and the stick. And so in this instance, I'm asking about the stick. Is it when you submit the disclosure, is it an attestation under penalty of perjury, a certification that this is true and complete, right? Flat, not to the best of someone's knowledge, that this is all the disclosure and this is and that's what it is. So that and then if it's not, it comes to light later, there could be some consequences for that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bush, want to add something?
I'm sorry. I'm back with you. Thank you. And thank Commissioner Chu, because those points are well taken. And I have the same concern about enforcement of violations or apparent violations. If I understand it correctly, and Mr. Ford and Mr. Shin can correct me, but the ability to discipline a commissioner, for example, rests with the person who made the appointment. So, for example, if someone is appointed by the mayor and they're faulted for not having filed, the commission doesn't have the authority to remove them or take significant action. That falls back with the mayor. And this has come up in the past with commissioners who the commission itself, the Ethics Commission, voted that they should be disciplined and forwarded on to the appointing authority, and no actions were taken. So I think Commissioner Chu's point about where is the stick on this is well taken. The most that we've been able to do that I'm aware of is if someone doesn't file their Form 700, we could send a note that they should not be voting until they file. But I'm not sure what the penalty is if they did vote. What do we have if they just ignore it? Because we don't have the authority to remove them for that. And also, when you get into the question of line staff, the director of the department would be the one who has the authority. And as you know, when we have a whistleblower case, those whistleblower cases are often referred back to the department for comment and enforcement action. And so, in effect, if someone's blowing the whistle on things within their department and it's given to the department head to resolve, it really does not answer the issue that's raised by the whistleblower, which is how are we actually holding people accountable? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bush. I have a couple of comments. First, I want to echo everything that's been said by my colleagues. In terms of the loopholes and the penalties area, I think that people are always going to find ways to skirt around the rules. And it's really important for us to really take a really deep dive into how we can close as many loopholes as possible to prevent future skirting the laws. When Commissioner Bush talked about the travel situation, people can meet the requirements of, legally accepting gifts or what have you. But I think that we really need to have stronger language to include, besides the basic travel, what about the upgrades? That's the area that people can easily skirt. If you are legally allowed to accept the coach seat, then all of a sudden you get a first class seat upgrade. That is reportable and should be unacceptable gift. So I think that if the staff can really go back, especially on the gifted department area, to look at those area giftings that is beyond what is legally allowed, whether it's an upgrade for a car, upgrade to a hotel room, whatever, that should be included as a gift. That should be a reported gift. Right now, it isn't. Also, in terms of the enforcement, how do we, other than a whistleblower or honesty, how can we keep track of that? So those are the things that I think we need to really take a deeper dive in. The second thing is, I know the staff has been working really hard getting our stakeholder communities engaged throughout this process. But one thing that I've always wanted to see is a broader stakeholder community's voice be included during these deliberations. I know the pandemic has been a challenge for a lot of the folks who otherwise could participate. And also, as I said, there are many new community stakeholders who are now getting into, all the activities that we are now talking about. And it would be really important for them to have early buy-in, and more importantly, to build the communication between this commission and the broader community so that they understand what these are and they can add to, their experience, what would work, what could be better, and how can we make this proposal workable and achieve the purpose. So I would ask Mr. Ford to go back, not go back, but to put together another stakeholder meeting, this time broaden it to bring in different new partners, new stakeholders, so that they can hear from the staff what the history of this is, what the intent is, but more importantly, to hear from them how this would impact them as a partner in this whole endeavor. So that's my number one request. The second thing is sort of minor. I remember when we discussed the non-cash gift proposal, we talked about, and in this report, you did mention that it's okay to, if they're providing water, cookies, or whatever. But I do remember we suggested that if those same offer were made to the other people, so it's not just you. So if water is available to all the attendees, sure. But if the water is only available to you, that should not be counted as a acceptable gift. I thought we had the discussion on that before, but I would recommend that you look into that, just to add in that as long as those offers are available to the public, then it should be acceptable. I think those are, and the final thing is if Mr. Ford can give us a timeline on how this is proceeding, so that we can have an idea of how fast we should, move this. Is there any deadlines that we should be aware of? Mr. Ford?
Yes, yep, and I've been taking notes, so I want to provide some information about everything that was just talked about, because I think these are all super important points. Okay, so I won't go necessarily in the order that we talked about, but I think I've got it all here. Okay, so
could I add something to your list? Commissioner Lee brought up some very good points, Chair Lee, and I'd like to elaborate a little bit on them. When she mentioned upgrades, our state charter, I believe it's in the Constitution, says that state officials may not accept the gift of free travel on railroads. And that was because in the early part of the century, the railroads were incredibly powerful and influential in the state government. So they put it into the Constitution that you couldn't accept a free train ride. I don't see why we can't, for our purposes, deal the same way with other kinds of transportation in addition to railways. That it may not result in being expelled from your position, but to the extent that you're talking about airlines that are that have rights at our airport, and so they're in a contract agreement with the San Francisco International Airport, that any upgrade from one of those airlines would have to be disclosed and would have to fall within the limits. So that's one point that I want to make. The second is that in addition to disclosing a gift of travel, for example, overseas, I think that it would be important to also report what your purpose was. I mean, if you were representing the city, did you give a speech? Who did you meet with? And what was the general topic of your meetings? So that the disclosure is not just the money, but also what you did as a result of having that funding provided to you. So I think that those are things that I would tag on to what Chair Lee has said, that they are examples of what I have seen. And the third thing in that is that Chair Lee mentioned upgrades, but it should also include how a seat on an airline is valued if it's actually a charter flight. So we have seen cases where city officials flew even to Europe on a private plane, and the only thing that they had to disclose was the value of a coach seat if they were on a regular commercial flight rather than the benefit of being in a private plane. And I don't think we want to stop people from being on a private plane, but I think it's fair to say that they should have to disclose a full compensation for being on a private flight rather than just putting down a coach seat. So to the extent that you can explore that, and that's within our mandate, I would recommend that we also address that.
I think the charter flight is a good example. I think that under certain extreme circumstance, maybe people need to get to a place to help out with emergencies or what have you, and there's no commercial flights available. That should be allowed, but there needs to be extremely close monitoring and written into this ordinance to make sure that there's no abuse. The federal government does not allow at least the political appointees to accept upgrades, even though you might have earned their airline miles yourself. It's just optics. That's why you can see secretaries, stuck in the middle seat at the back of the plane. But that's what it is. That's part of building the public's trust in our government. So if Mr. Ford can include, at least to look at other best practices and how to include that into the next draft, that would be great. Commissioner Bell?
Yes, my comments are on a different tact. So I want to congratulate Mr. Ford and Mr. Canning for this document. And my comments for the record are as suggested. I appreciate Commissioner Chu's sense of that some of these are, 20,000 feet and some of these are granular as suggested by Commissioners Bush and Chair Lee. My sense would be that all of this happens in phases. It's not like you just put some gigantic piece of legislation or regulations down and it's all handled in that way. And I'm hoping that, a majority of people are not going to break the rules and are not intent on breaking the rules. And that what we want to make sure is, I think this document really gives a good floor for the majority of people that want to give public service in the correct way and don't want to violate the rules. And as I've said before, I just want to make sure that for those people that there has been training, information, dissemination, little video clips, something that lets them know when it is that they may be getting near the line as they do their duties. I join my comments for those, join my colleagues for those who are just going to be intent on breaking the law and figuring out how to get around the rules the minute the rules are written. And unfortunately, those people are in government too. And hopefully they're the extreme minority, but we have to look for those as well. And so I think that this is a very good start for laying the ground rules with the caveats that my colleagues have brought up, and that we continue to make sure that the overwhelming majority of people that want to comply, that this is disseminated and given out and trained throughout the government to make sure that folk know what it is they're supposed to do, and that we continue to tighten it up for those who are a little more aggressive and determined to break those rules. So I'll leave it at that. I think it's a great supplement to what has gone on before. And as we continue to evolve and try to close loopholes, and as Chair Lee mentioned, we will probably have to do it again because that's just human nature. But I want to congratulate the staff on this work, and as a great floor that we can improve on with the suggestions that my colleagues have, but job well done. And if we can just make sure that a lot of the city and county employees know that this is there through scenarios or however we do it, I think that that should be our largest mission, and that we continue to tighten up for those people more determined to skirt the rules and regulations.
Response, comment,
I'm not getting a clear sound from Chair
Vice
Lee.
Chair Lee. I think we might have to have you call back in. We are experiencing the little triangle went off again, so it looks like might be experiencing a bandwidth issue with you, Commissioner Lee. If need be, please hang up and then call in, and then we can move you over from the attendee list to the participant list, if you can hear me.
I don't see, I see her little triangle and no visual.
Yeah. Usually that little triangle, the yellow one with the exclamation point, it's referring to bandwidth issues, so.
Not a good sign. Technology standpoint.
Yeah. So Commissioner Lee, if you can hear me, this is Ronald. You might have to hang up and please call in the number that was provided to you. And then we can move you over from the attendee to the participant list.
I think that while we're trying to get her back, I think that Mr. Ford was responding to the comments of my colleagues. We might want to go forward with that while we try to get her back, because oftentimes when there's bandwidth issues, they can't hear.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's a good idea, and maybe I'll just wait to talk about the questions that Chair Lee raised until we know for sure that she's back on. But I'll start with other ideas. So for the record, I'm Pat Ford, Senior Policy and Legislative Affairs Counsel. So I'll start with your comments, Commissioner Chu. So you talked about the rules should be flexible enough to address future issues as opposed to just past ones. And that's been a central feature of our approach on this project. And we totally agree that we don't want to just construe these narrowly to apply to specific situations that we know of. Although those situations are a big reason why we're doing this project, because there's such an obvious need to address certain things. We don't want to be narrow-minded and just write rules that are tailored to one specific fact pattern. We want to identify what's the larger underlying issue here that could pop up in many different manifestations and write rules that are flexible enough to apply to whatever form these issues may take. That's what we try to do. And there's always going to be creative folks out there that try to work around the rules, and that's why we have a policy division. We'll keep refining these things, but I do hope that what we're able to put in front of you is pretty flexible and should give the enforcement division and other folks in the office lots of latitude to keep the rules evolving even without going back and rewriting them in the code. About disclosure and
I had a question then based on Commissioner Bell's comments about the training, and is there something that we could include in either in the ordinance or in the regulations that would require this training, that would and I know there's the whole meet and confer process, but a corruption scandal is a terrible thing to waste, right? Because I think that there's in this moment and this time that where we are, I think that there would be a lot of support for additional training. I think there'd be a lot of desire for additional and clarity around what is allowed and what is not allowed. And to Commissioner Bell's point, it's I believe, and I hope this is true, that the vast majority of the city family wants to do the right thing, and we just have to make sure that they know what that right thing is and where to go to find answers. And then, but on the flip side, for those who are intent on or wanting to subvert the rules, that there would be consequences for those as well. But that I think that the training component is going to be absolutely critical. And so would just ask you to think about how do we take advantage of this regulation and like legislative process to bake that in to the requirements, so that it isn't it's going to depend on who the leader is to make sure that this gets done. And that people get the information that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that technically we're agendized only on this item and not on the next phase, but I think it's safe to say that for the next phase, we are going to include a training requirement. That is something you will see when we bring the phase 3 report to you, is that definitely will be in there. And a big part of that is, as you know, we've been authorized to bring on additional staff to create an ethics at work program. And we think it's really crucial to have a statutory obligation there that underlies that program, so that that's something that requires folks to participate in that program. It's not, like you said, voluntary and just up to the discretion of whoever the department head is at that time, that this is something that would become an annual part of being a city department, that folks are going to be trained.
Yes, great.
And that just gets baked in to what it's like to work here at the city.
That's right. Wonderful. I look forward to hearing more details.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to bringing that to you. And to your comments, Commissioner Bell, that's definitely how we think about these things too, that we really need to have a two-pronged approach at all times, that we have education, engagement, compliance, resources to help people, because I think our experience confirms the way that you see things, that the vast majority of people that we deal with really do want to comply, and they try really hard to. So we want rules that are workable in practice, that actually people can comply with, but we also want rules that are strong and enforceable. So in circumstances where we see people not complying, that we will be able to use those rules in a way that creates consequences for those people, so that there's a really strong incentive to comply, even if people don't just have that inherent tendency to want to comply on their own. Okay, so I want to back up to your other comment, Commissioner Chu, about disclosure. And again, this kind of gets a little bit ahead of this agenda item, but penalties is going to be another component of the phase 3 report. And you touched on this too, Commissioner Bush, about penalties for, or lack of penalties for voting if you have failed to file the Form 700 or complete your ethics training or sunshine ordinance training. And to answer your question, currently in the code, there are no penalties associated with voting, even if you are disqualified from voting. So that is something that we will bring a recommendation to you on how to address that and fix that shortcoming in that rule. And just to the larger point about penalties for failing to disclose, that's another thing we'll bring more broadly to you with that phase 3 report, is ensuring that there are consistent penalty provisions throughout the code. Right now, if you look throughout the different chapters of the Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code, you will see variation in how penalties are discussed in each code section, or rather each chapter of the code. We don't think there's a good basis for that. We think there should be a very clear and uniform penalty authority throughout the code, so that wherever disclosures appear, whether that's in the campaign consultant ordinance or the permit consultant ordinance or campaign finance, any place a disclosure is required, there will be a penalty associated with any failure to comply with that disclosure requirement. So again, you'll see that forthcoming, even though it's not before you in this item today. Okay, I'm going to go to Chair Lee's comments. So about gifts of travel, this is one of the things that we focused on in the gift phase of this project. Is we didn't want state gift exceptions to just be wholesale applied to our restricted source rule in San Francisco the way that they currently have been. So that includes the state exceptions, which, as you know, some of the state exceptions would be carried over into the draft regulations that are attached here. Some would not. And then additionally, in the draft ordinance, the language that says that gifts of travel and wedding gifts would not be subject to the restricted source rule, that language would be stricken. So gifts of travel would become subject to the restricted source rule. So the questions of valuation that you raised are definitely still important, but they're not determinative in terms of whether or not the gifts would be subject to the restricted source rule. So a restricted source would not be allowed to pay for a gift of travel. And given the new rules in the ordinance about use of intermediary, that the same would be true if an intermediary were used to pay for a gift of travel, as long as the person, the official receiving it, had reason to know that a restricted source was in fact paying for that gift, they would not be allowed to accept that gift. And to the questions of valuation, I know with flights, the FPPC does have regs. And I was just looking a minute ago, they do have a reg specifically about charter flights and how to value someone who enjoys a complimentary or discounted charter flight. So we'll definitely take a peek at that and make sure that it's working the way that you're envisioning it. But that is out there.
Chair Lee, if I may, I have a question for Mr. Ford. Jesse Maynardi had submitted public comment on this agenda item and had in his one comment consider adopting this regulation 18945C or something similar for determining the source of a gift at events such as nonprofit fundraisers, where the nonprofit is hosting the fundraiser is not a restricted source, but one of the sponsors is. And then according to Mr. Maynardi's comment, his view, his interpretation is that under the currently proposed rule, such a sponsor might have to pull its funding if it learns that a covered public official will attend the fundraiser for free, and the official is not going to make a speech. So under the FPPC rule, where the link between the sponsor and the public official is attenuated, the host, the nonprofit, is the source of the gift unless someone else, like the sponsor, actually specifically paid for the official's admission. I know this is like very much in the weeds on that, but under our current proposals, how would we treat that scenario?
Yeah, so the reason why we did not incorporate all of that regulation is because there's a different subsection of that regulation that it is not in line with the know or have reason to know language that underlies the restricted source rule. So specifically in subsection D, which is a different subsection than Mr. Maynardi is talking about, it talks about presuming that the source of a gift is the actual source of the gift unless it's clear from the surrounding circumstances. Otherwise, the standard that's used in the restricted source rule is know or have reason to know. So we didn't want to incorporate a regulation that uses a different knowledge standard than what's in the code, because that would be weird and really confusing. But I think his point about C is well taken, and I think that's something we can include in a regulation down the line. I think just for that very specific fact pattern that he's talking about, I mean, at first blush, I think that probably makes sense. I'd want to take a closer look at it, but I think that is probably at the level of granularity where it's most appropriate for a regulation once we're at that level. That's why the FPPC has it in a regulation. So I think if and when these ordinance changes do become operative, we definitely will need to have another round of regulations at that point. So I think that's something that we can do at that point. And that actually brings, that ties into a comment that that Commissioner Bush made about regulations and providing specific examples or fact patterns. And that's something I think we can and should do in that subsequent reg process. The regulations that are before you right now, these are things that could be freestanding, that could go into place even without any changes to the code. These are just changing the existing exceptions that live in the San Francisco regulations. We don't get into changing the regulations to account for changes to the code that would be caused by the ordinance. We think it's best to wait until those changes actually happen and then go back and make those changes. So I think that would be a great time to go and add those kinds of examples. Okay, so let's see, so I was working through Chair Lee's comments. You talked about enforcement, and you did as well, Commissioner Chu, talking about enforcement for disclosures. I think, we're really at an inflection point with enforcement. We have the opportunity to expand the staff, to bring on new investigators. We're still in the very early months of the SARP program, Streamlined Administrative Resolution, being in place. I think you're already seeing a huge uptick in the number of case resolutions from that. We have the fixed penalty process in place. I foresee in the next months and years that we'll be able to really take new approaches to enforcement that we may not have done in the past. It's an opportunity for us to maybe move beyond just working through the caseload and start to think forward and proactively about what can we do? What can we imagine that we could do differently? And that could involve exactly what you're talking about, of thinking about new ways to detect violations that maybe we aren't already accounting for right now. That being said, it is kind of an inherent difficulty with enforcing on disclosures. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And like you said, you do rely on folks to bring complaints to you, to bring information to you. And we don't have control over that. But I do think that this new kind of watershed moment in enforcement could be an opportunity to start thinking about those things. And that's a conversation I think we would be eager to have with commissioners too. What thoughts do you have about that? Commissioner or Chair Lee talked about stakeholder engagement. We do have a couple of IP meetings noticed for next week, on Tuesday at 12 and Thursday, I believe that's at 4 p.m., 3 or 4 p.m. Can confirm that. And we've had a good number of RSVPs for those. But I do really agree with your comment about finding new folks to engage with. That's something we really, really want to do. And frankly, it's difficult. We do a really good job, I think, of engaging with the folks who we know. We keep in very close touch with the stakeholders that engage with the commission. I think that we generally keep them in the loop. We listen to them. We get good, very useful feedback from them. But we would really like to expand our capacity to reach new people. And again, I think that's something we may have an expanded capacity to do with the Ethics at Work program. We can't use that program to solve any and all problems, but I do think an outward-facing communications approach hopefully will be a part of that we can think of new ways, whether it's through social media or whatever else, of finding new people, of telling new folks that might not know us or know what we do, helping them see us, just creating a little bit more visibility wherever people find their news or engage with public policy issues. We want to find a way to be there. So I totally agree with you, and I think that's something we very much want to do better as well. Specifically, the exception about routine office courtesies. I was just looking at that while you were talking about it. I think we did have the same intention that you talked about when we used the word routine. We were hoping that would mean things that are generally available. They're not a special courtesy, but a routine courtesy. But I think we could easily add some language in there that says maybe that are offered without regard to official status. That's language you see commonly that says, this isn't a special treatment. This is something that's just offered generally and not just because this person's an official. So I'll make a note to go back in and just add that language, because I think that would be a helpful clarification. So thank you for that. And Commissioner Bush talked about kind of a general, I'll call it kind of a common carrier rule. I think this is in the California Constitution, that railroads cannot, or maybe it's phrased as officials cannot accept free passes from railroads. Yeah, and my understanding is the same in terms of the history of why that's there. I would say that under San Francisco law, insofar as any airline, railroad, bus company is a restricted source, meaning does business with the department of the official or is attempted to influence the official, those free passes or discounted passes would already be prohibited. So an airline that's doing business with the airport would be a restricted source for officials within the airport. They would not be able to accept any gifts from those airline carriers. So I think that's how we address that now. And then I think that brings me to the last comment, which is about the timeline for this project. So as you know, this is agendized for discussion purposes only. That's because we have not completed the meet and confer process that has to conclude before the commission takes action. I can update you that DHR noticed both of these items and the phase 3, tentative phase 3 proposals for meet and confer. They invited employee bargaining units to meet and confer on these Wednesday of next week. And it's our goal to conclude that process before the commission's December 10th regular meeting. And we would also properly notice the regulations. They have to be noticed at least 10 days before the meeting. And if both of those things happen, the notice is the easy part. The meet and confer is kind of the more difficult thing to predict sometimes. But assuming that both of those are complete, the commission would be able, if you wanted to take action on the ordinance that's before you today, the draft regulations before you today, and a draft ordinance for the phase 3 recommendations that deal with things like training and penalties. And also we discussed the statements of incompatible activities in that. So that's our goal, is to give you that ability if you'd like to vote. That's our target right now. I don't know if I missed anything, but please feel free to ask any more questions that you might have.
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Oh,
yes. We can hear you. We can see
Commissioner
you.
Chu. Commissioner Chu.
Yes. From a process standpoint, Mr. Ford, if we were to take this up again in December and it was in a position to be approved, is this something that we would, because we do have actually 2 elections coming next spring, one in February or March and another in June, and because these are not just regulations but also changes to the code in the form of an ordinance. Is this something that we could put on the ballot?
Yes, these are things that could go on the ballot. The ordinance language could. And also, we will likely have recommendations as part of the phase 3 report that will pertain to things that could only be done through the ballot. So we'll talk about that in the report. In particular, any changes to the campaign consultant chapter have to be done through the ballot measure process. There's not language there that permits the Board of Supervisors acting together with the Ethics Commission to change that. So we'll break it down in the report. But yes, to your question, the ballot measure would be an option for this.
Okay, I would, and I don't know if this is like okay to talk about, but I think from a process standpoint that if we are in a position to be able to vote in December on the, and assuming that meet and confer has concluded and all of the procedural hurdles have been cleared, then I would suggest that we agendize this as discussion and possible action, to approve and put on the ballot. Would that be the February or March ballot or the June ballot?
That would be the June ballot. I think the deadline for the February 15th election
probably passed. Yeah.
I think it was kind of already passed before they even set the election up. It was kind of right. Unique. So it would be the June election would be the next possible one.
Okay. Yeah, to tee that up for June, simply because it will be there's an election, it'll be decided. I think that from a process standpoint, that is probably the most expeditious and cleanest, given our experience with the other ordinance changes that have stalled.
Yes, and on that note too, I anticipate in December, I want to bring you another update on that item. I don't think I can discuss it right now just because it wasn't part of this, but I will give you an update on that at the December meeting, and may also have a recommendation about how to move that, the content of that legislation forward.
Right. When we get to agenda item number 9, that's the discussion and possible action on items for future meetings, but we can talk about that there.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Deputy City Attorney Shen, is that appropriate to do under agenda item number 9?
At the future agenda items meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can certainly talk about that. If you don't mind, and Chair Lee, if you don't mind, for me having a couple minutes, if I could just sort of follow up on Commissioner Chu's process questions and process points.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so thank you. I do just want to clarify where things stand as far as I'm aware of them. So one thing that was perhaps not clear in the staff covered memo to these items today is that the City Attorney's Office has not had a chance to review these ordinances through its normal legislative review process and has not yet approved them as to form. No, I certainly have been in the loop on parts of what's been proposed today, but some other pieces like the Part 3 proposal, is that the right phrase, Pat? Or maybe the Phase 3 proposal, I've only seen a very preliminary draft of that. And even despite the fact that it's going to meet and confer, I believe, on Wednesday, that has also not been reviewed by my office as well. So I do just want to make sure as a process point, we all understand that there may be further changes that we need to conduct through the drafting process. We'll certainly try to accommodate however the commission wants to move forward from a timeline perspective. It is also correct that the next election in which the commission could put a ballot measure on, it would be the June 7th, 2022, or June 8th, maybe I got that day wrong. Anyway, next year's statewide primary would be the next day that we could potentially target for some ethics commission ballot measures. And lastly, just as a process point, and Commissioner Chu, I know that you're a fellow veteran of sort of the 2018 amendment process that we conducted with the ACAO. Some of these proposals could be done in cooperation and in consultation with the Board of Supervisors. As you may recall, we have the ability to amend some of these through supermajority votes of both the Commission and the Board of Supervisors. But I certainly understand that that's not the Commission's preference to proceed that way. I understand. Thank you.
Hi. Hello.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear. We can hear you, Commissioner Lee.
Okay, I'm trying to log back in, but I cannot see you guys.
And we can't see you.
Jeez. Okay. Do you mind if we take, since it's close to 11, do you mind if we take a 10-minute break, see if I can get this taken care of?
That seems suitable to me.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you for your patience. Ron, do you mind staying on the line to make sure that I'm locked in?
Oh, yes,
correctly?
definitely. Just to let folks know, it is 10:49. We will reconvene at 11 a.m. Is that correct, Chair Lee?
Yes, thank you.
All right. All right.
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.
everybody. And I do apologize for the tech challenge I'm facing in my area. Just in case I lose connection again, may I ask Commissioner Chu, who is the senior member of this commission, as well as a former chair, to take over while I try to resolve the situation?
Yes, happy to do so, but hopefully the technology will cooperate.
Thank you, Commissioner Chu. I think when we left, we were going to open up for public comment.
Okay, please stand by.
Excuse me, I think I had a few additional comments.
Oh, my apologies. Yes. Commissioner Bush.
Thank you. I just had a few.
If any interested parties want to call in, please dial in now. Commissioner Bush, please.
Thank you. I had 3 quick questions. You talked about airlines cannot offer upgrades and free trips to airport officials, but shouldn't that include any city official? Because it's not just airline officials who approve ultimately arrangements that the airports have. So I'd like to see that we include not just a limited universe, but the entire universe of people. That's one point. The second is on your, I would recommend an outreach to departments as soon as you can who have contractors. For example, the PUC, the DPW, Rec Park, because they're the ones who are going to have sort of institutionalized their arrangements. And they need to know that whatever arrangements they institutionalized may be subject to be revised as a result of this ongoing effort. So if you want more input, I would suggest we reach out to those. And the third thing is that it sort of goes with the whistleblower, but the whistleblower has aspects that are important to this. I think we should have a see something, say something rule that says that if you are aware of violations, like maybe you're an administrative assistant who makes the reservations for an official who's going to stay at a $1,000 a night hotel, you might want to have that person tell the official that this falls outside the rule, and if they don't change it, then make that known to officials at ethics that this is an apparent violation that's now taking place.
Commissioner Bush, just be aware that you're also off camera. You have your camera off.
I'll address those in reverse order. So to your last point, I think we see this as maybe one of the biggest, perhaps the biggest outcome that we can get from training is exactly what you just said, that if city officials, not just electeds, commissioners, and department heads who currently have to do training, but all Form 700 filers, anybody who's participating in government decision making, if all of those folks, which we're talking in the thousands instead of hundreds, are trained on ethics rules, that what you just described is much more likely to happen. If people know the rules and they've had face-to-face contact with a person from the Ethics Commission, one of these ethics at work outreach specialists, they are going to be much more likely to see a problematic behavior and understand that it's problematic and to say something about it. I think right now, those folks just don't have a point of contact with our office. They don't have any training. So to me, that's the huge first step we can take, is get in touch with them, teach them about the rules, and I would predict that we're going to see that happening, that we'll get more folks saying something when they see something. In terms of outreach to those departments, I think that point's well taken, and yeah, I think we can definitely do that. And about the point you made about the restricted source rule, we've addressed that issue in the draft ordinance. So section B1 talks about city officers and employees not being allowed to accept gifts from somebody doing business with their department. That's kind of the basic doing business aspect of the current restricted source rule. But under B2, we added an additional rule that even if a contractor is not doing business with your department, if I think I might be misspeaking, maybe this is not 2. Well, I'll tell you what the number is in a moment, but the concept is if the official approved the contract, that would also make the contractor a restricted source. And that's trying to target the exact scenario that you're talking about, where a contractor is doing business with a department, but it's a large contract. Perhaps the Board of Supervisors approved it, their approval was required, that the contractor would be a restricted source for them as well. So that is something that we've built into the restricted source rule in this proposed ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to public comments, please.
As I sit here, I'm unmuted. Sorry, I just unmuted myself. I do see Commissioner Chu's hand is raised up. Did you have another
Oh,
additional?
I'm sorry, that is from before.
Okay.
And Ronald, before you call for public comment, I just wanted to clarify one thing for Commissioner Bush. So it's not B2 of the restricted source rule. If you're looking at it, it's actually part B of the definition of restricted source. It says that for members of boards and commissions, including the Board of Supervisors, a person doing business with any city department pursuant to a contract that required the approval of the board or commission is a restricted source for that person. So that's where that addition would be made.
Okay.
But are they a restricted source for somebody on the planning commission? Even though
not if that I guess we're talking about airline carrier. If that airline carrier is not doing business with the planning commission or the planning department, and planning commission approval was not required for any contract or permit or anything for that company, then no, they would, under the ordinances drafted, they would not be a restricted source for them.
I'm not sure that gets to the issue of public trust. If city officials can find a way to accept a gift like that because they're not on a restricted commission, it's going to be a problem in terms of how the public views it. If you look back at what happened with DPW soliciting contributions for a nonprofit, they didn't appear to be covered by any rules because he wasn't an appointed department head, and he wasn't covered that way. And the fact that the money was going to a nonprofit meant that he wasn't covered. So, for example, we have an exemption for providing information to a commissioner. But in the past, we've seen that could include creating an entire data system that was unique to a situation and giving it to one supervisor who then models it for making legislation. And I'm not sure that what you have here would fall outside the exemption or within it.
So to the idea about DPW, I mean, you're talking about Mahabanuru asking Recology executives to make payments into a nonprofit that he controlled. That fact pattern would absolutely be covered both by this ordinance and by the phase 1 ordinance about behested payments. So under the behested payment ordinance, he would be prohibited from soliciting any payment to a third party from somebody who is an interested party for him. And that includes, in his case, Recology, because that's a company that's doing business with his department. So that absolutely would be prohibited. Likewise, even without having been asked, if Recology were to make a payment into a nonprofit, knowing that that money was going to be used to pay for free personal benefits for the director of DPW or anyone else in DPW, that would violate this current ordinance. So this definitely would address that fact pattern.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, can we proceed to public comments, please?
Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are callers in the queue. For those already on hold, please continue to wait until the system indicates you have been unmuted. If you have just joined this meeting, we are currently on the public discussion on the motion of Agenda Item 6, presentation and discussion of draft ordinance and regulation amendments to enact recommendations contained in Report on Gift Laws Part A, Gifts to Individuals, dated August 2nd, 2021, and Reports on Gift Laws Part B, Gifts to City Departments, dated September the 29th, 2021. If you have not already done so, please press *3 to be added to the public comment queue. You will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Since this agenda item does not require any action, so let's, and thank you, Mr. Ford, for your work, and also we look forward to your update next month. Now is agenda item number 7, which is discussion and possible action on fiscal year 22 first quarter status report on the implementation and of the recommendations of the August 2020 Budget and Legislative Analyst Performance Report of the Ethics Commission.
Thank you,
Bellum?
Yes, thank you, Commission Chair Lee, and other commissioners. Gayatri Tyckendale, our Deputy Director, is unable to be at this morning's meeting, but we provided a summary for you, as we did in June and January of this year, about the status of the implementation of recommendations from the Budget and Legislative Analysts performance audit that was issued in August 2020 for our office. The report that provided to you, you'll see has 3 components. The first, a very brief overview, a snapshot of where we are in terms of recommendations that have been that are in the planning phase, that are in the making way in progress, and those that have been completed. The report then links to the actual table that we've shared quarter after quarter of each of the 16 recommendations, and more detailed notes about the status of that work. And then also links, the third piece is links in this document on the table to various summaries or documents referenced in the chart here. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for us. The point of the report, of course, is we want to make sure that we're being accountable for progress that we are making, and that we are being transparent about the progress that we're making and attempting to make to continue to improve our operations, informed by the recommendations of the BLA. The short summary that I hope you would be able to take away from this is that we have been making steady progress to initiate work and to expand work on the recommendations. We only have 1 recommendation that remains in the planning phase, in contrast to the last report we provided to you. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and we look forward to having, again, a fuller report as we go through one of the recommendations on the whistleblower area, for example, was that we report semi-annually, so we'll be including some of that information at the next report that we provide to you. But happy to provide any information here, and we're happy to be making the progress that we are, and look forward to finishing the progress up in the coming few months.
Okay. Director Pelham, can you refresh my memory specifically on the 6% plan status? What items are those? And also the 38% in progress items?
Of course. As shown in the attachment, the status of action on recommendations, when viewers are able to link to that report, we list out the 16 recommendations, essentially by program area. The one item that remains in the planning stage is to establish a formal training for our audit program or audit division. That is something that we've prioritized as part of this fiscal year's work plan with the team. But as you see from other documents on the agenda that we'll get to in a bit, we have just been able to finish our hiring to fill an audit position. So with that vacancy now filled, the team is complete. And so we'll look forward to having a more formalized training plan developed over the coming months. We've been enlisting feedback from auditors about various types of skill sets that they may want training on, but this is a more formalized training program that we realize speaks to sort of audit functionality and audit program work more richly. So that's the one that's in the planning stage. The other work I think that you asked about that were in progress are also shown. Those are continuing to establish goals and work processes for the audit program. And as we have our staff now complete, our team complete on that. Approving procedures for the lobbyist audit program, that has been something that has been pushed back till December 30th as our target date because of the hiring process that we've been in office-wide that has required attention of our audit manager. Also, the audit manual, that's something that's in progress. Continuing to work with the team on that is something that has been very much of a focus of the audit team so far. And then continuing to work on our enhanced case tracking and performance management. You may recall that we have received funding for this fiscal year for the development of a case management system. So we have been working our enforcement team along with our electronic disclosure and data analysis team to actually meet with support staff from outside of the office who are enabling us to build a system. And so we've been starting those conversations and identifying the elements that we're going to use for that, but that's also a priority for the team in the enforcement team and Team EDA this year. And then lastly, again, it's formalizing and documenting a training program for the investigators. As you also know, we have, when I'm happy to introduce you shortly to two of our newest investigators, we have 2 more positions that we'll be filling. And we have also, of course, had transition with the leadership of the division. So those component parts have affected our timeline for this, but clearly the training that we want to make sure we're providing to folks is as rich as possible. That's something that will be on tap for the team over the coming year. And then lastly, as I mentioned, the specialized training for the whistleblower program, that's something that also would be embedded in that more formalized training program for the full team as it's put together in the coming year. So those are the steps that are in progress. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I see Commissioner Chu and then Commissioner Bush.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Executive Director Pelham, I believe that the BLA audit report had recommendations around staffing. The findings were that the Ethics Commission was understaffed. Do you know just offhand how our current staffing increases compared to what their recommendations were?
Yes, our current staffing, we've actually, I think, achieved the staffing recommendations that the BLA report identified last year. They were focused on making sure that we completed the positions that were identified in FY21. So an audit manager position has been filled. We've hired the new staff to assist with the Form 700 program, positions that were identified in our FY21 budget. This In addition to that, as you know, this year we have 8 new positions that we're filling. And so that's the Ethics at Work team, which is still in progress with me in terms of posting job descriptions, and 2 additional enforcement staff, and 1 program performance analyst to work directly with our deputy director and me on making sure that we have our fullest reporting and our most transparent reporting regularly to you all and to the public. So there are a number of positions still being filled, but that's in addition to the positions that we were focused on with the BLA report.
Right. Okay. That's great to know, because I knew that we've had ongoing turnover, so there would be vacancies, and we obviously need to backfill those. But we had the additional 8 positions that were approved for this year's budget. I just wanted to sync up as to whether or not those additional positions and the backfill gets us to what they had recommended, and it sounds like it does.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for this report and for the staff's continued progress on basic blocking and tackling, going from half planned to only 1 planned in the course of 9 months during a pandemic. It's just really tremendous work on the part of you and Gayatri and the whole team. So thank you for putting that effort in and continuing to make this a priority.
Of course, thank you.
Commissioner Bush?
Thank you. I'm unmuted, right? You can hear me?
Yeah.
In terms of the
You're on camera, Commissioner.
Oh, I'll show you my face. It's good to know the position titles that you're filling, but it's not clear to me, and maybe to others, exactly what the duties will be. Can you provide some additional information on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to give you the short version this month, and I would be more than happy to give you a longer version next month to talk through what those programs are shaping up to look like. The positions that we're currently hiring for on our jobs page, of course, is our Director of Enforcement and 2 senior investigator positions that we were newly authorized in this budget for. We also have a temporary administrative services clerk that will be helping with our front-facing, public-facing services in our office in the coming months on a temporary basis. But the key positions that we also are hiring that speak to the ones I just was discussing based on Commissioner Chu's question, we have an Ethics at Work program that was designed and is being developed internally to tackle many of the issues that Commissioner Bell and others in the last discussion talked about. We need to be in front of city staff, working with them to understand in practical terms what the rules of the law, the rules of the city are in terms of ethics, and also the standards that we're aspiring to achieve. So this will be a program that we're developing. We'll be working with departments. We'll be prioritizing, because it'll be a 3-year program and we can't do all departments all at once. But we want to make sure that we're providing information and support in practical real-world settings through case studies, other information regularly that will help people understand how to navigate ethics in practical settings and in the pressures that we all face in city government as public servants. So we will be doing communications, we will be developing case studies, we will be developing smaller trainings. Anyway, happy to sort of flesh that out a bit more in a briefing next month that's useful to the Commission. Separately, we have a program performance and reporting analyst that one of the things the BLA report discussed was that we have tried year after year in our budget requests and through annual reports that we've now issued to provide some context for the work that the Commission's doing, the progress that we're making, the impediments we're facing, and the challenges that we have in doing this work. And that's something that we want to be more transparent about and more systemic about. So this performance analyst position will be working directly to support me and the deputy director in working to collect and amass and publicly report on our progress indicators in understandable ways and in consistent ways over time, so that it's easy to see where we've started on a project or in a process and where we've gone along the way to make inroads into impact through that work. So that's a position that is also in development. We haven't posted it yet, but that was a new position that we were authorized for this year's funding. And those are all priorities as our FY22 hiring plan.
Thank you. A couple of questions come to mind. As you mentioned that you'll have to do the ethics at work thing in a 3-year increment because you can't do all the departments at once. Will you be starting with the departments that have been most visible as failing to meet the requirements of disclosure and conflict of interest? Like, for example, DPW and PUC.
I don't have an answer for you yet on that, Commissioner Bush. The program is still in a developmental stage. I'm going to be reaching out to the department heads and have started reaching out to those department heads where some of the issues have been most prevalent. And I think the answer is we'll know more once we've had a conversation with them about what the needs are, what work they may have underway, and how we can collaborate with them. So again, happy to give you a fuller response about that next month if that's useful to the commission.
I would like to suggest that in addition to asking department heads and city officials, that you take into account what we have seen from the U.S. Attorney and the city attorney and from the public news media accounts of problems in conflict of interest in San Francisco. I think that a part of what our job is to build public trust. And if we sort of lay those issues to the side in order to meet a different kind of scheme for doing the training, that we will pay a price in terms of public trust on that. So that's the first point that I want to raise for your consideration as this moves forward. Secondly, I wonder to what extent the investigators or auditors, that I'm not sure how to differentiate between them, take a look at filings for Form 700. Do you guys do an actual check on what's being filed, or are you just checking off that they have been filed?
You may recall that the Controller's Office has recommended that we establish an annual Form 700 review process. Then that is something that we will be establishing through our audit team this year. To date, we have looked at those reports as they come in to see if they have been filed or not been filed. The Form 700 post-filing review process that we're establishing as recommended in one of the Controller reports will be more robust than that.
And that report made that recommendation when?
I believe it was in August 2020 Controller. I don't have the exact date, but it was one of the early Controller recommendations, one of their public integrity reviews that they identified the recommendation that we establish that process, and that has been a priority for us as we work with our audit program this year to develop it. That's one of their priorities.
Just to be clear, it was proposed to us as a priority 14 or 15 months ago, and we're not ready to move on any of that yet?
It was proposed in one of the public integrity reports. I don't have the date. It was probably likely 14 months ago now. And it is something that now that we have an audit staff, it is a priority for us in this fiscal year. Yes.
All right. I think it's important for the public to understand that we didn't act because we were short-staffed. I think that otherwise the public is going to look at this as we didn't act because we were playing favorites with people at city government, because there's a suspicion of that anyway. And I think we need to disabuse the public of that to the extent that the record does allow us to disabuse them of that. So that's a point that I like to elevate in our consideration of this as we move forward. You said that you still put off looking at lobbyist audits and investigations. When is your timetable for that?
December of this year. As the chart indicates, we've had to push that back by 3 months because the audit manager was tasked with helping with the hiring process for the audit division as well as the investigative division.
So that's next month you're talking about?
Yes, that is next month. December 30th is our new target date for having the processes identified. And so it is a fiscal year priority for us this year as well.
So the process will be by December 30th, but when will you actually start implementing that process?
We are expecting to implement it in the beginning of January of 2022 with a goal of having an audit completed by June 30th of 2022.
So during that period of time, we'll see 2 elections, a February election and a June election, in which lobbyists will be playing a role one way or the other. Are you going to fit that into your timetable as you're looking at it? Or, I mean, because you can go through all kinds of lobbyists who spend very little, lobbyists who don't spend much, who spend a great deal, lobbyists who don't report that they're being paid anything at all, even though they're making contacts. What will you be looking for with all that?
We will be looking to complete the lobbying audit program by June 30th, along with the audits that we have to complete, along with the establishment of the Form 700 post-filing review process. And so our audit manager and 3 members of our audit team will be working closely to try and accomplish all those goals. So all of those will be juggled, in addition to prepping the public financing administration and review process that the audit team also handles around February through June, when candidates start indicating that they're interested in public financing for the November election in the Board of Supervisors races. So there's a number of agenda items that are priority for the audit division to attempt to make progress on this year, and we're going to be focused on trying to do that. So as you know, we'll have these quarterly reports to make sure we can be transparent about any progress that is being impeded for any reason, and hopefully we'll have fewer impediments as we go forward now that we've got a full team as possible. So
there's no question that all of us are aware of the heavy load that's been placed on the ethics staff, not least because of the scrutiny of how City Hall is operating or not operating in the public interest. So that when you hear my questions coming, it's out of a keen awareness of how the public views us. As you know, there are efforts at the board to split off some of the things that the Ethics Commission does because of a belief that ethics is not getting things done that it needs to get done. And those factors concern me because I think that ethics should not be split off, but I understand the sentiment that that says that people have more expectations than what ethics has been able to deliver. And so when we talk about a timetable and duties that will be accomplished in that timetable, I'm measuring that against an expectation that needs to be clarified to the public what it is that we can do and what we are not able to do. So that's part of what I think you've tried to do with an analysis of the recommendations from the controller. But I think it needs to be a more robust response to the public on those issues. So I'm just saying that from my own personal perspective.
Thank you for that feedback, Commissioner Bush. I know that you know that the staff very much shares that interest in making sure that we are as transparent as possible about the progress that in fact is being made, and that is the point of these quarterly reports. It's a really important opportunity to be able to engage with the commission and the public so that it's not a question about what the Ethics Commission is doing or whether we're doing our job, but how we're doing it with everything we can and with as much focus and energy as possible. So I very much appreciate the chance to talk with the commission every month and to be very public about the work that's going on. So we look forward to continuing to make progress on these in even bigger and better ways. I think we all share that goal.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other comments from the commissioners, let's go to public comment, please, moderator.
Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are callers in the queue. For those already on hold, please continue to wait until the system indicates you have been unmuted. If you've just joined this meeting, we are currently on the public discussion on the motion of agenda item number 7, discussion and possible action of fiscal year 22 first quarter status report on implementation of recommendations of the August 2020 budget and legislative analysts, the BLA performance report of the Ethics Commission. If you have not already done so, please press *3 to be added to the public comment queue. You will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. The public comment period is closed. Since no action is required for this agenda item, let's move to agenda item number 8, discussions of the Executive Director's report. Director Pelham.
Thank you, Chair Chu. Excuse me, Chair Lee. Chair.
I wish to.
Once a chair, always a chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This is a very brief report, but important information I wanted to highlight for you. One is, as I've mentioned, we earlier in the meeting, we are physically reopening our offices on Monday. It has been an unusual and a fascinating road to get to this point, but we will have our doors open on Monday for, again, public-facing services. Some of the processes we have will be familiar, some will be different. Obviously, keeping in alignment with the city's health and safety protocols, we've established a new and updated COVID-19 prevention plan that we will be circulating and making available to the public, of course, who visits our offices. And I'm very, very grateful. I really do want to call out the work that it has taken the staff to think through those issues in a very detailed way so that they make sense and are consistent with sometimes changing guidance. But I think we are looking forward to seeing more of each other, and I think we're looking forward to seeing more of you all in the new year, as well as those meetings can resume back in City Hall. So we will be posting information and distributing it broadly to our stakeholders to highlight this update. Separately, the other very important item that I'm happy to share is our hiring and staffing news. As I mentioned in the last item, we have now concluded the vacancy filling for our auditor position. I do have our 3 new staff members, the 2 that I wasn't able to introduce last month here, and if they can just flash have their cameras go on, you may be able to actually say hello to them. But as you remember from, for this month, let me first introduce Cesar Delgado. Cesar has been was with the Franchise Tax Board for roughly 20 years, and he has experience as an auditor within the political reform audit program at the California Franchise Tax Board. So has a great wealth of absolutely spot on experience for us. And we're looking forward to having him now join the audit team as well, working closely with Linda Fong and Rob Hodge and Manisha Long on that team. He also had some experience working at a political law firm previously, so has some exposure to both sides of that coin. And we're just happy to welcome Cesar to you today. And if you can give a wave and so people can say hello, that would be great. But Cesar just started with us, is it this week? Just this week. Seems like it's been much longer process than that. So welcome on behalf of all of us. I'd also wanted to make sure to introduce last month to you our new staff members who joined us last month. BC Matthews is one of our new senior investigator legal analysts, and Corey Ordonez as well. I think both BC and Corey are online. BC has most recently served as a housing rights attorney in the Bay Area, but also in New York and with Manhattan Legal Services doing work in the housing rights area. So she also had some time as a special investigator with the Office of the Inspector General for New York City's Police Department, and is bringing all of that experience to us. We're really delighted to welcome Beezy. And Corey joined us in October as well, and he served most recently for the past 5 years as a court investigator with the Superior Court of Contra Costa County. And he did a lot of in-depth investigations there relating to guardianships, conservatorships, and complex accountings of various conservatorship and conservatees estates. So somebody who's not afraid of data and digging into detailed data. So he also had experience 4 years as a judge advocate general with the U.S. Army, where he did work before administrative review boards as well. So with Beezy and Corey joining us, we've also brought some very really great skill sets and background and insights to the investigative team. Just very happy to be welcoming all three of our new staff members, and look forward to introducing additional staff members as our hiring process continues over the next coming months. Happy to answer any questions, or if you have any questions for our new team, feel free as well.
Great, thank you, and welcome all the talent that we're going to have on this commission. We look forward to working with you. And that's the Commissioner Chu, and then Commissioner Bush, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair Lee. Thank you, Director Pelham, for that wonderful introduction, and welcome Cesar and BC and Corey. You bring so much experience and impressive backgrounds, and I'm thrilled that you are joining the commission to help us do this really, really important work, and delighted that you have experience and that you're committed to this work, and look forward to seeing the results of that in the future. And congratulations to the entire Ethics Commission staff to be going back in person on Monday. It's been an incredibly long and arduous, exhausting and draining process, I think, for everyone. And the amount of work that I can only imagine that it has taken for you to be able to open the doors to the public on the 15th must have been Herculean. So thank you for that, and thank you for hanging in there throughout this long, surreal process. It's been hard, I think, for everyone, and the fact that we are on the cusp of this on Monday, I think, is a testament to the leadership and the commitment and the drive and just the culture of like can do in the Ethics Commission. So thank you for that. And I'm so thrilled. Maybe if I can try and squeeze it in, I'd love to swing by to say hello to everyone, because it's been months. Like the last time I think we were in person was in February of 2020, so over a year and a half ago. But it's great to be at this point of being in person again. So thank you for that.
Here. Commissioner Bush? And you, please.
One of the things that you can do as new staffers is train the commissioners on how to unmute. Sorry about that. I want to welcome you and echo the same things that Commissioner Chu and Chair Lee have been saying. The one thing that I think is really an indication of the importance of the Ethics Commission is that this commission is uniquely given authority to put things on the ballot. And that's something that, as far as I know, no other commission that's dealing with ethics can do in the state of California. And as far as I know, no other city commission can put things on the ballot directly without going to the Board of Supervisors. So that's an indication that when ethics was created, there was a recognition that the work of ethics needed to be able to be based entirely on the view of the Ethics Commission and not filtered by the political considerations of the people who run for elections. There's another reason why commissioners serve for 6 years and cannot serve for longer periods of time. As I'm sure you will see, we have other commissions where people have served as commissioners for 10 and 20 years and never stepped down from their appointments. So you have an opportunity to work in a commission that has very unique and powerful authority and a very unique and powerful way of being established. That's not to say it can't be improved in both regards. So it just says that this is something that the voters see as important, and your work as part of that is going to be very important. So I'm delighted to understand the background and work that you guys come from, but you're certainly working in have worked in some of the most challenging parts of government, from housing to the FPPC. So welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Bell, please.
I just want to wish you all welcome as well. The work that you're doing is so important. I won't repeat what my colleague said, but just offer you an individual welcome, and anything that I can do as a commissioner to assist you in what you're doing and to support the staff. Please know that I'm here for it. And joining Commissioner Chu in welcoming folk back to the office. I'm sure it's a mixed blessing for some people. It's like they can't wait to rush back to the office, and other people are like, oh my God, what are we doing? But be that as it may, I hope that as we all start to transition back to a more normal world, that the staff is able to be as strong and productive as we need them to be. And I too will try to run through there at some point to say hi to everybody and wish everyone well. So thank you, welcome. You people seem extremely experienced and have a wide wealth of life experience as well as work experience, which I always think is better. So welcome aboard, and all the best to you.
Thank you. And Chair Lee, if I might add one more note.
Okay. Yeah.
We, per the city's health and safety guidance, we are still establishing ourselves in a fairly small office with increasing numbers. So what you'll see is a hybrid model going forward. There will be staff in on certain days of the week, remotely working some days, in office some days. So nonetheless, we are working with our tech folks to try and make us as visible as possible to everybody, public and commissioners alike. So we will look for opportunities certainly to welcome you both on site as well as collecting with staff remotely and formally as we can, because we do value your insights and your welcome. So thank you for that.
So does that mean that you will be able to welcome the public?
Yes, we will have.
Right.
Yes, the public will be available to support the public. We will just have staff working on sort of staggered days over the course of the week. So we won't be able to put all 33 positions in that office. We just simply don't have space anymore. So given the masking and the social distancing encouragement that the city's health guidelines still provide, we're working within those constraints to get people in, but we will have people on site, multiple people on site every day. And the doors will be open to the public again, 8 to 5 as they have in the past.
If you could highlight that on our website as well as our Facebook and other social media, just to let the public know, that would be terrific.
Yes, we'll do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, let's open up for public comment, please.
Okay. Just as a reminder to all participants, if you did raise your hand to speak and you're done, can you make sure to clear your hand and lower your hand? Thank you. Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. For those already on hold, please continue to wait until the system indicates you have been unmuted. If you just joined this meeting, we are currently on the public discussion on the motion of agenda item number 8, discussion of Executive Director's report, an update of various programmatic and operational highlights of Ethics Commission staff activities since the Commission's previous meeting. If you have not already done so, please press *3 to be added to the public comment queue. You will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You'll hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, public comment is closed. Let's proceed to agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action on items for future meetings.
Vice Chair Lee, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Lee, I just want to make sure that you have your iPad muted because you are echoing.
Yes.
Okay. There we go.
Commissioner Bush and Commissioner Chu. Unmute, please.
You know, you can teach an old dog new tricks, but they're very slow to learn. I noticed that we are receiving some public comments in advance that are in writing. And I'd like to recommend that when we receive those kinds of comments coming into the commission, and since they are public, that at the next meeting, the commission director take a look at responding to those issues specifically. It's one of the ways in which we encourage the public to have confidence that that we are listeners as well as talkers when it comes to ethics concerns. And the two that I saw had to do with a suggested audit of some Form 700s and of some specific city officials, and another one had to do with whistleblower. And I know that we have put in the past that we plan on hearing an update on the whistleblower program. I would encourage that when we look at that, that it be at the next meeting in December, and that we also consider how the law has been written to limit its effectiveness as opposed to ways it was written to expand its effectiveness. And I say that as having been one of the drafters of that particular law, which I did with Commission President Ben a few years ago. He had me sit down with him and we went through it line by line. But you can't anticipate everything. So that's one issue. A second thing is that I sent out a memo on public outreach, and I'd like to put on the agenda a discussion of how we can do more to facilitate public outreach, including work by the commission itself, by the staff, and work we can do in partnership with other city agencies, particularly the ones that are themselves engaged in public outreach. I know elections is going to have its hands full with elections in February and in March. And in addition to that, they have the whole question of redistricting and drawing new lines. And so that makes it imperative that we see the levels of public outreach. And then looking at the data that elections had from just a few months ago, it showed a concerning gap in the participation of voters according to where they lived. so that in some districts, the participation was down at 50%, and in others it was at 80%. And I think that a gap that large raises questions about the effectiveness of what we're doing, since more money is just going to be given to the effort to encourage greater participation in the government in elections. I would urge that we take a look at including in that outreach that facilitates greater participation in those areas where participation is low. So those are issues that I'd like to see on the next agenda. And I would add to that one other thing, and that is that to facilitate that and to facilitate in general the work of the commission, that we put into the budget a commission secretary, which, as you are aware, is something that the charter says that commissions shall appoint a commission secretary. It doesn't say it can, it says it shall. And I'm sure that anybody who knows the government language knows that that means do it. And while we have been very short-staffed in the past, we are staffing up. And now we're going to see increased demands on us as a result of the mayor and the boards adding new funds for elections that are coming up. So I would ask that in the preparation of the budget, that it include a position of commission secretary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And I just want to ask the director, when we receive public comments via the official site, don't we include that in the minutes, the meeting minutes?
Yes.
We should, if not.
Yes, Shirley, I believe we do reflect them in the minutes for the meeting. We also forward them to the commission on receipt. And I think we also make an effort to link them to the agenda items online after the commission meeting so that the public can see comments that have been received as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Thank you, Chair Lee. So for my proposed topics for the December meeting would be an update from the policy team on the behested payment ordinance changes. I believe it was last year, and we've lapped ourselves now when the commission approved changes to the behested payments ordinance and sent it over to the Board of Supervisors. And for a variety of reasons, I think that it has stalled and has not been acted upon, at least to date. And so would like to see where we are and understand procedurally what our options are going forward with that. And second, to the similar to what Commissioner Bush has raised about public outreach, I know that the calendar for the 2022 meetings is probably in process right now. And I'd like to ask the director to perhaps consider looking at a later start time for our commission meetings so that we can make it easier for members of the public to participate and not have it be during the middle of the workday or like the prime time hours of the workday. Perhaps like a 4 o'clock start, or so that the public would have the benefit of being at the end of their own obligations and would be able to dial in or come if we ever get back in person to commission meetings. So that's the second kind of process thing. And then lastly would be and would ask for the Deputy City Attorney's view on this as well, to put the election of officers on for the next meeting. Chair Lee is, I think, acting chair, but we don't have an acting vice chair, and I think it would be helpful to have that back up in the event that technical issues come up and then to just settle that for the remainder of the current term before the regular election of officers.
Great idea. Commissioner Bush, your hand is still up. You want to comment?
I associate myself with everything that Commissioner Chu has just said. Thank you.
Okay. If no other comments, let's open up for public comment, please.
Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are callers in the queue. For those already on hold, please continue to wait until the system indicates you have been unmuted. If you've just joined this meeting, we are currently on the public discussion on the motion of agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action on items for future meetings. If you have not already done so, please press *3 to be added to the public comment queue. You will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, public comment period is closed for agenda item number 9. The next agenda item is additional opportunity for public comment on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda.
It looks like we have no hands raised. Internally. Would you like me to proceed with public comment?
Did we lose Chair Lee?
Pardon me?
I think you're on mute.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, it looks like there's no hands raised. Would you like to move forward with public comment on this agenda item?
Oh, I thought I asked for public comment.
No.
So sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Okay.
Okay. No hands raised. Okay.
Yeah. Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are callers in the queue. For those already on hold, please continue to wait until the system indicates you have been unmuted. If you have just joined this meeting, we are currently on the public discussion on the motion of agenda item 10, additional opportunities for public comment on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda pursuant to the Ethics Commission Bylaws, Article 7, Section 2. If you have not already done so, please press *3 to be added to the public comment queue. You will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Public comments closed. I just want to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues and everybody for your patience in putting up with today's technical challenges in my neighborhood. Let's call for agenda item number 11, adjournment. No action is required. I guess unanimous
We're good.
approval.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Safe one,
Happy
everyone.
Thanksgiving. Have a
Take
wonderful
care, folks.
weekend.
Thank you.